the Age of Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. From 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Vision radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Good morning, UCY.TV, our radio listeners, as well as real radio listeners. My name is Jerome, and I am the Sane Environmentalist. It is the 15th of February, 2018. I am in Arizona. It has rained. It actually rained for 2 days. Very slow, kind of drippy, seepy rain, I guess you could call it, not a real rain. And with it came very much upper respiratory stress for me. I've been hacking and coughing, and nothing feels good and comfortable right now. My whole upper respiratory system is just jacked up. I was looking at the raindrops that were dripping off of the little awning that comes off the side of the house. And they're cloudy. They're not crystal clear. You know how raindrops, when you look through them, you can look right through them and everything's upside down. It's cool. Well, these are like muddy looking. Has to make me wonder. You know, that's a new kind of phenomenon for me. I'm used to raindrops looking like raindrops. And, wow. And Lonnie Clark can back this up as well. What is raining out? You know, because I could see dust on the awning after the first 2 or 3 hours of steady, slow rain. But then, now, all of a sudden, all the dust is washed off. And what have we got? What is this brown, ugly liquid? I don't have a good enough camera to take a picture of it, unfortunately. And the last drips are drying up as we speak. So, just a heads up. The current world population, according to Worldometers, which seems somewhat valid to me, is approximately 7,602,174,580. There have been 145,000 plus births today, 6 deaths. The overall population growth of humans on this planet has been, today, since midnight, that is 9 hours, 85,500 new mouths to feed, people with careers and jobs and lives, etc. The number one populated place on the planet is China with 1.4 billion people, followed secondly by India with 1.34 billion people, followed thirdly by the United States with 325 million people. The least populated country is, believe it or not, or the least growth is Thailand with only 69 billion. If you look at a chart, and I thought there was growth, but it's like, whoa. If you look at a chart of humanity and our population versus time, if you go back, this chart goes to 400. So we're at 2000 now. So at the year 400, all the way from there up till 1820, 1830, there's pretty much flat human population. There's no real growth at all. And then in the 1800s, late 1800s, we took a left-hand turn and literally created a, I wish I could show you guys pictures. It's linear. It goes straight up pretty much from there. Boom, 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 more and more. Now it's kind of tapering a little teeny bit, but we've gone completely off the chart, let's put it this way, population-wise, since the 1800s. Think about that for a moment. Think about humanity on this planet. You know, what is our place on this planet? Are we alien to this planet? Are we truly aliens on Earth? And we just haven't realized it yet? Or are we just a natural adaptation and evolution and a natural thing that occurred on this planet without any outside, quote unquote, influence, except from perhaps God, for those who need to believe that? We don't really know, do we? There's no telling. The more I study history, the more I realize that our version of history is oftentimes tainted with would-be's and could-have-beens that are created and treated as facts versus what actually occurred. And a lot of things are left out. A lot of things are left out in our education. You know, we are literally, and little stuff slips out, and you've got to be listening carefully for it. But our government, United States government, is in possession of materials which they do not understand. They don't get it. We don't know what it is. We don't. And that's all we're saying. We found it. We don't know what it is. And that's all we're saying. The Army has this stuff, you know, so there is evidence out there, but it's being suppressed. You know, how many people knew about that? Not many, but you can back it up. You can research it. It was released by the government, that information. You can find it. You know, but they do it that way. They move information around in such a way that the people that get it, that everybody else thinks they're crazy, basically. You know, and science. Let's take, for instance, since we're speaking of history, let's talk about Egypt and the understandings that we have of human civilization and the dawns of human, quote unquote, dawns of human civilization. You know, most Egyptologists and humans in general would agree that the ancient Egypt, that was the cradle of civilization. Okay, that was the dawn of the modern man, was that era. But we ignore, and here's where we are being lied to. We ignore, one of the two, obvious scientific evidence that indicates that, well, okay, you can call it that. And actually, in a way, it is, because that is right after the reset from the asteroid impact. But keep in mind that the pyramids were around when the asteroid impact occurred. there and after. A lot of the work in Egypt was halted right after the asteroid impact. There is this KT boundary. Look it up. There was a giant asteroid that hit the planet and just spread out across all of Europe and Asia, and pretty much the whole northern hemisphere was just blasted with this debris, clouds and rains and fire and melting ice caps and floods as a result of the melting ice caps, and it completely reset humanity and life on our planet in many different ways. That's how things work here. You survive or you die. You really don't have a lot of choice. You either adapt or you die. And you survive, you need to adapt. So that is what it is, and I'm looking at it like that. Then you begin to understand that, okay, then if before that, that's when the pyramids were built, before the impact. Well, where are all the this and where is all of the that? Well, floods and fires have a way of destroying things, but the evidence that it remains after the cataclysmic episodes that occurred, like there's two giant statues somewhere. They're carved out of single blocks of stone each, and it's quartzite stone, and they are blasted. You can just look at these statues and see that they are melted by some force that was blowing by them. It was that intense. It melted hard, the hardest stone. So there were some impacts and things on this planet about 12,000 years ago that reset human civilization. And we're a part of that reset of human civilization. And we need to really understand that. We need to rethink our place in history and understand that everything we've done is unique to us. We aren't part of them anymore. They're dead. They're gone. We're reset, and we are not doing so good. And our governments that we have created and our science that we have created in an act of self-preservation and a grasp for power, of course, are deceiving us. And that is the way it is. That's why there's been evidence of UFOs, for instance, since the 80s. But have they let that out? No. There's several incidences where the radars and everything, and people went nuts, and there was lights in the sky and zipping around at 700 miles an hour, 700 miles an hour, and then making right-hand turns and going the other way at 700 miles an hour. This happened, but nobody hears about it. Everything gets shh, quiet. Look over there. Hey, you want a cell phone? And boom, okay. We as a people have allowed ourselves to become kind of retarded about what really exists in the world. I'm just listening to what we're told. We do what we're told. Or do what we're told to do, just like that one song. So that is really sad. It really is. But it is what it is, and there has to be a voice of truth in that. There has to be somebody who speaks out against that. Against that, it also means a danger to the individual. Every one of us who is an activist either gets noticed, okay, like Monty, for instance, has been noticed now, and people are after her. Nobody's really noticed me yet. Or maybe it's because of my sanity that they just can't get at me. I don't know. But when I look at things, I try to see the whole picture. And I try to analyze things from a holistic perspective. And so my analysis has led to some somewhat theoretical conclusions. Let's call it that. Step one in those conclusions is we need to indeed find what the real truth is on all of these things and act upon that truth appropriately. Are there UFOs? Do we have this technology? Why aren't we are you saving this for defense? What is your issue? Release it to the rest of the world. Is it that dangerous? Is it more dangerous than nuclear power? I don't know. Is nuclear power a result of that? Just a primitive example of it. Okay. Is our efforts at splitting the atom just the most primitive of understandings of what can be done with matter? Are we just ignorant children playing with a big torch and giggling and laughing and running around and trying to burn each other with them? We need to get real. We need to understand the real truth, and we need to act on that appropriately. We need to ban all of these things. We need to get rid of them. We need to get them out of our world and not create any more new ones. And as well, we need to move forward. With step 2 would be move forward with new innovations. Innovations that remove the carbon dioxide that we're creating. Innovations that create energy and renew the environment at the same time versus pumping it out of the ground and destroying the environment. And also pulling yet more radioisotopes out of the earth and more polluting the environment with radioactive isotopes. It's really ugly. So new innovations could include algae farms. Think about how many in the Arizona desert and how cheaply you could do it with the sun available if you didn't contrail the place. How much algae you could grow, and that you can harvest wonderful consumable biomass that produces energy in a clean way because of the fact that it absorbs all of its carbon right from the air before you reburn it. And so it reprocesses the carbon that's in the air already. And for every bit you plant, it sequesters that amount of carbon for itself out of the atmosphere. And so that's no longer an issue. That's now in balance. And that's what I mean by move forward appropriately and act upon that appropriately. Appropriate would be appropriate to what the planet can take. Appropriate is things that don't harm the rest of the life's web on this planet that we're riding on. So these new innovations would remove this outside carbon. And the reason that we have a carbon dioxide issue is because of this. And I've said this before, and this is the best example that I've been able to come across in my own brain. Think of the earth as an apple, and think of the skin of the apple as life on earth. Now, underneath the skin of the apple, there's resources that the life on the skin of the apple could use, but by doing so, then you destroy, once you poke an apple, it starts to dry out and get yucky, and it destroys it. And I think we have to kind of think about the earth like that. If we need more carbon, we need to grow it. We've got plenty of space, okay? Space is not an issue. I think that we need to investigate ways to harvest the watts per meter squared of solar energy that strikes the earth every single day. We need to understand how to harvest that, not only through solar collection, through silicone and other primitive means. You can really call that, once again, a primitive. We would think of it as high tech, but it produces a huge waste stream. It's very inefficient. It's primitive versus a plant. Okay, versus algae. How does algae absorb carbon, absorbs carbon, bonus, out of the atmosphere and converts it to mass, which you can then take and reconvert back to energy by oxidizing it and releasing the carbon again, CO2. So that's how that works. And as long as you got oxygen to burn stuff, you can That's your energy. Your energy derives from changing the state of oxygen back and forth between carbonized and not carbonized. And we've thrown that out by pulling crap from the underside of the skin to the top side, which is a separate thing, and just smearing it around. And so now the whole top side is getting polluted with that crap from underneath the skin, which doesn't belong here. You know, it's like cutting off your nose to spite your face. Yeah, here's the ultimate energy source. Enjoy it. And on the other hand, we do everything we can to destroy the environment, which is the very thing needed to create the energy we need to coexist with life on this planet. You know, and as well, you know, that outside carbon is just a filthy thing. That's what creates all of the issues that we have environmentally, is digging beneath the surface for coal, gas, whatever it is that we've pulled out of the core from underneath this living skin. When you got issues, you know, if you pull too much of it out, you're going to imbalance things. And if you take your population and within a period of 100 years, quadruple it, quintuple it, which is what we've done, then what do you have? Then you have unlimited need, or a need that it goes beyond the ability of the planet to accept it anymore. All of a sudden, humans become the issue. The issue is, indeed, being a human. Even though individually we may think, well, I deserve to exist because I was born. Well, yeah, you were born, and therefore you do deserve to exist. You know, but every single one of us, every single human being on the planet, as soon as you're born, you create a need from the planet. You create a need. You know, and that need is energy. You need energy for this. You need energy for refrigeration, heating, cooling, communication, basic needs. And needs go on and on. If we don't have this energy, this outside energy source, then we go backwards very quickly. You know, as soon as all the lights and the computers go out in a research facility, it's just close the doors and go home. You can't do research. So basically, what we're doing is I don't know, that we are becoming out of balance with the rest of the ecosystem. Like anything that you get too much of it in this ecosystem that's unnatural to the ecosystem, then you become have issues, you know. So if indeed, and I do not, boy, I don't even know how to make this clear enough. I do not encourage human depopulation in any way. I don't encourage that. I think every living thing, by being born, has a right to exist, and I would extend that as well to animals and to plants to a certain extent. You know, so to everything is a purpose and a time for every purpose under heaven, I think that Catholics would say. But that kind of makes sense in this, you know. So what we need to do is we need to start by understanding our technology, by getting rid of the negative technology. We need to get rid of nuclear altogether. We need to get rid of the fire sticks, put them away, and do something different. There's a better way. Yeah, you got it. We get it. You got it. But you need to do something different. You know, the fire sticks, now you're going just way too far. You figured that out. How clever of you. But you know what? You're going too far, humanity. And now look what you've done. And now look. Look at you. You're like an idiot sitting there in your new radioactive swill, which is destroying your very DNA. And that of your children and your children's children. And you selfishly continue to try to pursue this. How silly. If I was an advanced species looking in on Earth right now, I would honestly have to say, these ones, they may be more dangerous than they're worth. You know, I think this is a weirdly hostile species that we need to maybe even sequester off this area and not let other people in, because it could get messy. Because for all we know, there is an intergalactic federation of planets. If we imagine it, then it can exist, and I don't see why it wouldn't. You know, I wouldn't see why it wouldn't. So I think we're getting to the point where our critical mass will take us back. That's going to have to happen. We're either going to have to innovate, or we're going to have to fall backwards, because a system cannot exist in an imbalanced state for an extended period of time without destroying itself from within. You know, think of the system of our ecosystem like a flywheel on a big piece of machinery, and imagine that you had a little bit of an imbalance in that wheel, and then quite a bit of imbalance, but the flywheel's strong and can take it, but that steady back and forth, push and pull, every revolution actually weakens the whole structure of the thing until finally, boom, everything breaks. And now you don't need just to balance the flywheel, you need a new flywheel and an axle and the holder that the axle went into, et cetera, et cetera. So that is basically what's going on with humanity, is we're creating an imbalance in a strong system, but that system, when it goes down, is going to go down hard around our ears and destroy us. And history shows that the system will readapt and bounce back just fine. You know, I think that even, honestly speaking, I think even if right now humanity disappeared and all the power plants just shut down right where they are and were never opened or went to again, you know, all the control rods dropped and everything just went, shut down. You know, I don't know how long it would take, but it would take some time, or even if they all blew up and the environment was horribly contaminated, it would take time. It would take millions of years, but this planet has got that. So in that time, we're likely, more than likely, to get mauled by a giant asteroid anyway, which will reset everything back to zero. So fear not, humanity. We're not all that and a bag of chips. We're definitely destructive. But we're destructive pretty much only to ourselves. I think the Earth is going to be fine. George Carlin did a bit about the Earth, and I kind of have to giggle when I hear it, because he's really right in some ways. The Earth doesn't give a damn about you and your. How do you know the Earth didn't evolve humans just for plastic, huh? Now we have a new paradigm: the Earth plus plastic. The Earth doesn't give a shit about humans or our cities or any of that. Okay, the Earth is what it is. And the environment, we only can control for a little while until we're gone, and then it will quickly reset, because that's what this planet has been prone to do from our investigation of it. So, yeah, it might take 500,000 years, but you know what? The planet's got 500,000 years, or we may not. We can't even begin to comprehend 500,000 years. I mean, think about it, 1,000,000 years. Think our nuclear power will mean shit 1,000,000 years from now? I don't think it will. If we destroy ourselves in 1,000,000 years, think of what could happen. You know what might happen is we destroy ourselves and they give it 100 or 200 or 300 years to kind of cleanse itself, and then everybody that from out space comes in and takes over their little sector that they were promised, because they were guaranteed that this race of silly kids was going to destroy themselves with their fire sticks. And they did, sure enough. Look what they did. Burning fossil fuels, really? Are you really burning fossil fuels when you got gravity right there? You know, because I think that there is an ancient technology that existed in Earth, on Earth. I think it was here, okay? And I think this technology included the ability to move extremely dense and heavy objects from place to place efficiently and to somehow generate energy, a usable form of energy that was clean and in balance and in harmony, maybe even from the very resonance frequencies of the earth itself, via crystalline formation or something, and perhaps even a technology brought from outside the system, as in either an alien or some other sort of technology or ancient alien technology that they ran across or something. But I find this very interesting, So I was thinking, and let's jump back to where we were, and I got off track there. And I was talking about using the sun. We need to figure out how to use the sun. We need to understand as a species that we have this gigantic solar furnace right above our heads. And we've got tons of space compared to how many humans there are. It's not like humans are packed every square foot of the place. We have a tendency to conglomerate like a scab in cities and towns versus spreading out evenly. So there's space everywhere you look, and there's ways that you could harvest solar energy if you really wanted to. And I think one of the issues that there's been is that so that works during the day when you don't even need lights. You might need heat or something, but then what do you do at night? And everybody's like, well, you use batteries. And the issue has been with batteries is that we just don't have the technology to create a battery that's big enough to store enough energy to make it usable, if that makes any sense, for the long enough period of time. And now, and this is exciting, this is kind of a move in the right direction. I'm a little bit concerned about what the chemicals that they're using are, but researchers, and I think it was Timothy Cook and Angela, I can't even begin to pronounce her last name. It's like 12 syllables. University of Rochester. And what they did was they've got this liquid that they created that you can charge with electrons and then store away. And then they have a cathode that is solid. And then they take this liquid, which is stored with electrons, and they pour it over the cathode and create a flow of current through the cathode, because of the electrons in the liquid migrate to the cathode. Really brilliant. And they can do this. They can store tens and thousands of gallons of this liquid, and they're getting better and better at densifying the electron density in the liquid. It's very interesting chemistry. It's almost organic in nature. It's almost a little step closer to what a plant might do with energy, or how it stores energy, because that's what plants are. They're energy storage devices. They take solar energy and they turn them into matter, and combined with some water and dirt. Basically, you take dirt and water, and a plant takes dirt and water and sunlight and creates green mass that's completely different from either one of those things. If we could figure out how to create solar that way, where you're actually starting to use mass instead of energy, then it's a less instantaneous thing and it's a more on-demand thing. But if we could use solar to power this chemical bat, I don't know what the chemical is. Let me see if I can. Metabolites. Polyoxometabolites. What the heck is a polyoxometabolite? That's what they're saying that they're using. That's a pretty consists of 3 or more transition metal oxyanions linked together with oxygen. Wow, that's a pretty high-tech liquid. That's like a lattice almost. It's a huge molecule. Metallate. So that is a very interesting kind of idea. So they can store energy in tanks, and then later on they can just take the tanks and spray some of this crap on top of this electrode, or pass it through the electrode, or mix the electrode in with it, or I'm not sure how they do it, but then you get a flow of electrons, and so it's on demand, and that is very smart. So you can charge it during the day, and then at night, it's the same as basically a gigantic, huge battery. Entire cities could be run by a few water tank size tanks at night, and pumps. That's all you need. That, and attach it to a big solar array somewhere, 200-300 acres of solar cells somewhere. You could power a town. You really could. And, or figure out a way to grow algae and then harvest the energy out of the algae. I'm not sure how that would work, but certainly in places like Arizona, where you've got super intense sun, you could get so much biomass. If you could find an algae that grows hardily here, that has a lot of energy to it, you could suck carbon right out of the air and just recycle it. It would be, it is as close to photosynthesis as you can get, because that's what plants do. And then when they are eaten by other things, and plants kind of know they're here to be eaten, then plants metabolize. And by metabolizing, they create heat, and they burn. They literally create energy. It's literal energy. When you eat something that has nutrition in it, the nutrition burns. That's what it is. That's the actual fuel you get. So, and then what do? We exhale CO2. Think about it. We exhale CO2. We breathe in oxygen. We use it to metabolize the food that we've consumed, and then we exhale carbon dioxide. We burn calories. We burn food. We literally, just in a simpler, in a way more complex way, but still, it is a burning process. It is an oxidation that occurs. And so all life is basically a big circle of oxygen. So oxygen powers life. Oxygen is the core thing that carries through consistently in the life chain. And fortunately, we have a whole bunch of it right here, So let's see, we're at 8:40. So another step that we need to take in our forward management of our planet is we need to get rid of our solar radiation management programs and projects and other projects which emit tons of aerosols into the air. I mean, there have been days here in Arizona, and I've got YouTube videos of this where you can literally see the sky is totally overcast with just airplane back and forth in every direction, and they just completely cover this. What was a blue, beautiful morning by 2 o'clock is overcast and hazy and kind of warm at the same time, though. It's really weird, and and everybody has upper respiratory infections around here. Everybody. I would say there's probably 60% of the population that have, especially if you move around much outside, you get it. Like I ride a bike 4 miles uphill every day, so I get a big dose of whatever's falling out of the out of the air column into my lungs. All these patented, they got patents on the crap. Solutions that they spray that do different things. There's ones that nucleate snow now, I know. Okay, now they're using, I think it's mercury iodide or something like that. I'm not sure what they're using. But they figured out a way to create a chemical reaction that freezes in midair So it's a freezing mist, basically, that creates snow, and then the snow falls out and cools the ground down below because it absorbs energy, and therefore your watts per square meter in that area go down. Understanding that is what we got, is watts per square meter, and a certain amount of, it's kind of like the world population. There's a certain amount of heat that comes in and a certain amount of heat that goes out. When the heat that comes in gets out of balance with the heat that goes out, then your temperature rises, and then you have issues. I've even heard so much that Venus at one point was actually Earth-like, but had some sort of a catastrophic event, and it caused the atmosphere to not be able to emit heat, and so the whole thing heated up, and now Venus is like 400 degrees on a regular day. I don't know what Venus is really like, but it's hotter than heck, I guarantee you. As close to hell as you can get, and that Earth could do the same thing. I've heard that. That's kind of, yeah, I imagine if you had the right thing that changed the very nature of the atmosphere, that might do it. We're trying, but at least we're trying with the gas that's already present in the system, so we're just throwing the system out of balance. And as soon as we're weaned back, to a level where we can't produce enough of this crap to cause an issue, then things will balance quickly on the planet, carbon-wise. It may stay high for a while, but plants will grow. That's what plants do. They grow, and they'll take over areas. And I've noticed, hopefully, that even in areas that have been heavily irradiated, life continues to go. It does continue. It's sickly, perhaps, but it will evolve and adapt out of that and continue on. Certain life, I don't know. I have to wonder. The dogs around Chernobyl don't live long. Chernobyl is about the best example that I can think of a nuclear disaster and the aftermath of a nuclear disaster, where everything was heavily irradiated, at least briefly, and most things were heavily polluted for the long term. Where you had clouds of basically burnt plutonium and carbon and other things just floating right over the heads of people and getting into the cracks of things and into people, and what a mess, but in the end, and I've not been there, so I can't really confirm this, but in the end, I feel like it seems like nature is recovering around Chernobyl. I don't know. Maybe I'm out of whack. Maybe I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. But it seems like nature is, in fact, recovering. So I feel pretty strong. Even if we die off, nature will quickly take over and redo the whole deal. If you go to Google Earth, if you download the app, it's probably better. But Google Earth gives you a street view, and you can go right into the middle of Chernobyl and get a street view and look around there. And you'll see for yourself what I'm talking about. It's very green. Everything's overgrown. Everything that can grow is growing, plant-wise. And plants will move the heavy metals back into the earth again. A heavy metal wants to go down to the core of the earth. It's kind of the nature of the thing. But in other things, it's what a mess. But plants are thriving there. Look for yourself. A human would get cancer and die, and dogs only live a few months to a year or two. That was one of the saddest things, and that's another thing about what's happening in Fukushima right now is everybody's had dogs for years. Their dogs are they're all dying off. They're all getting cancer and dying because dogs are right at the ground. They're sniffing and huffing everything, and they get the worst of the worst. The heaviest of the particles quickly sink to ground level. Think about what's actually in a nuclear fog. You've got little particles of metals and other things, and other things that are attached to other things that are floating, and they land, and the heavier it is and the smaller it is, the quicker it falls out of the air onto the ground. Even as long as there's no sideways wind or anything, it'll go straight down. So that's basically, so the closer you get to the ground, the heavier the particles are going to be. The heavier the particles are, the more biologically intensively damaging they are, because that means you've got 239, 240, 241 are going to hit the ground quicker, logically speaking, than 236 and 234. If that makes any sense, if you look at the weight of mass, of air, of all that, and what you're dealing with, if you drop a piece of plutonium and a piece of steel at the same time, the plutonium particulate is going to go through an air column quicker than the steel particulate, because plutonium is heavier, much heavier. It's like 20 times heavy, so it's going to fall quicker, and therefore there will be a concentration of it at a lower level. And so children and animals are going to get slam-basted. In the next 10 to 15 years, there's going to be a huge amount of cancer in Japan. There is a huge amount of cancer in Eastern Europe right now, caused by Chernobyl, and parts of Russia caused by Chernobyl. That is what it is. Maybe that, and I've said this for years, the more I study, the more true it becomes. Maybe we are our own predators. Maybe that is our way of actually just destroying ourselves, and so that way it helps balance the whole system. I don't know. It's just silly, though. We have a tendency to try to kill ourselves off. It seems like we have this giant exploding population. Look it up yourself. I was shocked by that. Worldometers.info. But since we've gone to it's exponential, the amount of growth that we have seen overall. By 2080, we're going to have a world population of 108 trillion or 1.08 trillion people. It's doubling every 4 or 5 years. Every 4 or 5 years, the population of this planet increases by 100%. How long can our resources hold up, folks? How long can we do this? The only way we can do it is either by somehow miraculously producing enough energy for each and every one of those human beings, because humans, you need energy. We go back to that again. We need energy. If we don't get energy, we die. It's quite literally that at this point. And even if that energy is in the form of twigs and sticks that I'm burning, as a human, I need that outside energy source, or I can't really make it. Can't be successful. With no heat, no fire, there's no way that a human can be successful. We got to have at least something, at least some. It is what it is. I hate to say it, but it is what it is. So, what are we going to do about that? How are we going to address that issue? The fact that our population is going to be literally through the roof, and will literally be through the roof, to the point where I don't see how our ecosystem can maintain it. I don't see how we can grow enough food. How are we gonna generate more food mass to feed the doubling and quadrupling and quintupling of people? If you look at a curve of farms, I'm sure it doesn't have a linear line, literally a hockey stick in it. I'm sure that there's a certain increase, but we're about farmed out. We're about at the point as a species where we've almost pushed the environment as far as we can push it before there's going to be some serious pushback from the environment system itself if we don't figure out a way to do it differently. You can only push it so hard. It's like the whole climate is changing because of carbon dioxide. Well, oh, and as it turns out, by the way, this is kind of funny, isn't it? Airplanes are really bad, actually. They're just bad. They probably shouldn't be allowed to fly, but we do because they make us money. I can see that sort of thing coming out. Oh, we forgot to tell you that, didn't we? Too bad about that, huh? So, again, find the real truth and act upon that appropriately. Understand that we are but part of a very complex system. And that really and truly there should be rights granted to each living thing in that system, according to the very concept that without that, one species or one aspect of the system could actually overwhelm and destroy the whole system from within by creating an imbalance. And we already talked about the whole flywheel thing, and you got an imbalance on it, and it starts flopping around, and it gets worse and worse, and after a while, it literally takes everything else with it. Boom, broken down. Now you got to get a new one. And well, we do. And the wonderful thing about Earth is there will be a new one, but not including. It may be a new one, not including humans this time around. We may actually finally manage, after cataclysms and meteor impacts, to just about completely reduce us to zero. But not quite. I doubt it. Humans are far from done. We may die back. We very well may. There may be a dawn of enlightenment, quickly followed by a dawn of disastrousness. And again, we are due for an impact or some kind of major catastrophic event. Something's on the horizon, I can guarantee you, humans. We all, every day, each of us hope that, at least it won't be today. I'm all right today, because that's all that I really got. I only really have this moment. So this is all silly. What can I do about it? Why should I even give a damn? Why should I even care whether or not humans are exploding or not? Because I'll be dead before any of this is an issue anyway. And this is true. And it's easier to think of it like that, isn't it? It really is easier to think of it like that. But when you look at it, you can see that we do have a kind of a responsibility. And if I don't know, there again, there's the population curve. It's just off the hook. There's no way. There's just no way for us to get enough energy. We're going to have to do extreme things or have a bunch of people die on this planet. I predict. And the climate could shift. Things happen. A small impact on the southern pole of the planet could cause the whole place to go into a different kind of climate. Overnight, boom, winter. The whole southern hemisphere is frozen, and the northern hemisphere is cold from the equator on up, and gets warmer a little bit before it gets back to the pole where it gets cold as hell. We don't know how that could work. An asteroid literally flew within 100,000 kilometers of the Earth's surface of the planet the other day. Flew right by. A galactic bullet, which would have destroyed half of North America had it landed anywhere in Arizona. All of California shut down, Texas, Denver, the whole central hub would be gone. This would be just totally destructive, probably like 100 megaton explosion, airburst right over the middle of Arizona, for instance, would take out everything. All of our infrastructure would be gone at that point. Then what will we do as a nation? Once you've lost Los Angeles and Las Vegas and San Diego and Houston, Denver, whoa, okay, how's Louisiana doing? Well, they got pretty banged up by it, but they're still sort of functioning. From there over, it looks not terrible, but what are you going to do? we're going to fall apart, and that's sad. But we've dodged that bullet, and therefore we maybe have a reason to be here. So that's why I'm here. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to communicate things, trying to wake people's brains up. I don't know how else to put it. I'm trying to wake your brain up. I'm trying to get you to move forward and say, well, let's make a choice. I own a home. Okay, I'm going to put one solar panel on the roof, just one. It's a couple $100. What the hell? It's an investment, and then on down the road go, well, okay, another one, and then another one. Well, I need a battery. Well, okay. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm using only half as much power as I used to. Wow, that's an actual savings. Wow. Okay. Well, that's cool. Maybe I'll add two more. Maybe I'll add one every 2 months. And before long, I won't even have to pay the power company. And I'll have a battery bank. And I can sell my old batteries to the other guy who's just getting started because he'll want a discount on his batteries. There you go. It becomes an ecosystem. It becomes a self-reliant system. It is harvesting the very energy that it is dropping on our heads. I think maybe that's where the ancients had it right and we got it wrong, is they harvested the energy that dropped on their heads. They harvested the energy somehow from within the very earth itself. I don't know if they use magnetism or sound or some other vibrational energy, but it was earth energy, pure earth energy. They had that technology. They had to. It's lost now, but man, howdy. Imagine if we could just build pyramids and power a whole society with just a couple pyramids. How badass that would be. With no pollution. Wouldn't it be great if there was an energy solution for humanity and we could just go on and populate? I mean, we'll be at 100 billion, 200 billion. We're quickly overpopulating the planet. But I don't know. I'll have to compare us to other forms of life on the planet, which have a curve, and see where we stand. That maybe would be an interesting YouTube video. And I'll look at the timeline of human population growth versus the timeline of population growth of other species, including plants, animals, fish, and see how that stacks up, just to kind of get an idea of what the numbers are like. Because it's moving quickly. There's no doubt. I wish I could somehow forward this image, but picture a hockey stick, and that's what the rate of population. It was flat, 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 flat. And then boom, as soon as we discovered oil, as soon as we started going beneath the skin of the apple, we had the energy necessary to populate. See, that's the difference. The difference is we needed more energy. We were at a sustainable level with the environment, okay? And then as soon as we got more energy, all of a sudden, our populations explode and we become out of balance. The whole freewheel is going off hooks, baby. So, my name is Jerome. I am the Sane Environmentalist. You can find me at on YouTube.com. I am the Sane Environmentalist. I do videos about things that I see and things that I do and society and recently history, the history of the world, the history of humanity and how misguided I've been. I feel I'm almost like an outsider at this point. I look around me and I feel almost like an outsider. I feel so misguided that I don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do. And